like me and you. We aim to present a very credible, united, disciplined, and well-organized election machine that is coupled with a clear, specific platform for change Ghanaians can feel in their lives and in their pockets. We, the progressives, have a tall order before us, and that is because our burning, bright, red sun is throwing light on all the problems of Ghanaian society. It is telling us to get to work with a sense of urgency to solve the problems. The PPP red sun is shining on hopelessness. The CPP red sun is shining on homelessness. It is shining on poverty and disease. The sun is shining on lack of water and unstable power supply. The bright, burning red sun is shining on poor education, road accidents, and unemployment. It is shining very bright on corruption. And we, the progressives, have a duty to respond to this call, to bring incorruptible leadership into government and make Ghana great and strong. We are a progressive political movement, guided by an agenda for change. The progress we are seeking is the one we will make together. I am pleased to present to you our political platform for the 2012 elections. Ours is a simple yet powerful agenda. We are not producing a huge book of promises we cannot keep. We want the opportunity to implement our agenda using the spirit of inclusiveness that will enable us to use the best Ghanaians, full participation of women and youth, and above all, a leadership that is incorruptible.
Belinda, how seriously should we take the PPP following from the events of Saturday? Is it really in there to make a difference this year?
Yes.
Or it's an awareness creation for the future?
It's far from an awareness creation. We have come and we are here to make a statement. We want to assure Ghanaians that we are bringing the change that they so desire, and together, collectively, it will happen. So we haven't come just to let people know there's another political party. We are coming to represent the true change that Ghanaians need. So we are here to make a big statement.
Kofi, many refer to a lot of personalities, the Obeda Samoas leaving the NDC, some talk about the, what was the party that left the NDC? Some other parties have left, big political parties found themselves going back and all of that. And somehow in the Fourth Republic, of course, the CPP itself, from where the PPP is coming from, was a breakaway party. In fact, it was the first breakaway party in Ghana's political history in 1949, out of the UGCC that was formed in 47 and all of that. But they say that in the Fourth Republic, it seems that it's always a faux pas of a sort for political parties to say they are leaving the bigger fold. Really, what is different about the PPP? Why shouldn't people just resign and say, oh, it's just another of those things that people do?
Well, first of all, let me say that the Progressive People's Party, it is not a breakaway from anybody's political party. But based on the premise that you gave, I want to go back to the formation of those political parties that I referred to. If you look at the UGM, the DFP, and all the, I think, Reform Party as well, okay, they were formed as a protest political party that they were not happy with some of the internal mechanisms.
It's not the same thing that Dr. Vagosin does.
No, it's not the same thing.
Is it not
Dr.
unhappy with the CPP? Didn't he raise issues about Congress date, etc.? And then the chairman or chairperson of the CPP saying he was indisciplined and was being chaotic, and then he formed the political party.
No, you see,
how different is that from Dr. Charles
the formation of the Progressive People's Party
or Guzitano's party
was in response to the absence, a vacuum that has been created of a third political force since 1992. We've not been able to, there are problems that people cite in the PNC, the CPP, the DFP, and all the other, if you like, the smaller political parties, to be able to rise up to the occasion and to be counted as the parties credible enough to offer themselves to be elected for governance of this country. So it was a response to the progressive forces that something independent needed to be formed, something progressive that will put into parliament progressive-minded parliamentarians who will only focus on the fundamental issues that confront us as a
now,
people.
wasn't that propelled by a disagreement? You all remember the famous words on radio by Samia Nkrumah, which people thought was unprintable. Those were the issues that led to the formation of the party. So it's difficult for independent observers to say that, for example, Dr. Pakwesi Ndum was in the chair you were sitting in some few weeks ago where we discussed a few of these matters. And of course, we had Alistair Nelson also here with Nia Kumfra from the CPP discussing this. And the general impression I have formed sitting in this chair asking questions was that it's not as if Dr. Ndum just said, oh, I'm looking for a third force that I'm going to form. As a matter of fact, wasn't he poised to be flag bearer of the CPP for 2012 until certain things occurred?
Well, in September 2011, Dr. Ndum launched a campaign as a presidential campaign to be a candidate in the 2012 elections, hopefully on the ticket of the Convention People's Party. Now, as event turned out, it came up to the fact that the CPP, Dr. Ndum's wish, wanted to be able to be built to then take up the position of a third political force. Now, political parties are formed with only one or two objectives. The first one is to fight and win political power. And the second one, which immediately flows from the first, is to be maintaining political power. So if you have a group of people who are not like-minded, who think that one individual, in this case a former presidential candidate of the party, is doing things that in their opinion constituted indiscipline, which we disagree in any way, then, and also have the desire to be able to have the opportunity to serve your country in the capacity of being president and implement the policies and programs that benefit or cause major transformation in the lives of people, then you don't continue to be there. So it is not like a breakaway that it's like a voting by your feet or that kind of arrangement. Okay. Now, if you look at the platform of the Progressive People's Party, it is essentially saying that we are not ideologue. We don't want to be embroiled in this UP, CPP conflict, NDC, PNDC kind of arrangement. All that we are saying is that in 2012, a time has come for us to focus on fundamental issues that confront us.
Now you're calling yourself progressives. That is pro, you know, the progressive terminology in politics generally around the world has tended to be in Ghanaian politics as particularly the Nkrumah viewpoint of politics. And there has always been the progressive. And I also remember KB Asante, one of the most renowned personalities in our politics, sitting in that chair where you're sitting, explaining to me that he was progressive, he's pro-Nkrumah, because for the progressive, you're looking at the socialist view of things and more against the capitalist side of things. Yeah. And so in this speech, I've seen Dr. Ndum saying progressive, quite. We, the progressive, have a tall order before us. And that is because our burning bright red sun is throwing light on the problems of Ghanaian society, etc. It puts you in a certain corner of coloration when it comes to political ideology, doesn't it?
Yeah, the corner that it puts at is being pragmatist, being practical, having the opportunity to be able to implement human-based common sense policies and programs that deal with the fundamental issues that confront us. So really all that we want to convey to the electorate is that let's look around us. What are the issues that confront us as a nation? Educational system, there's a lot of problems with it. Housing, market, roads,
my biggest issue is that the lights don't stay on for me to work.
Yeah, so these are what kind of ideological dogma?
And I can't afford a generator.
Yes, so what kind of ideological dogma would make sure that you get the electricity supplied constantly? Just this evening when I wanted to prepare and come, I get home, try to get ready, and the lights were off. So what kind of, is it Danko Buzia philosophy that will bring power? Or is it socialism that will bring power, or capitalism?
Good point. Let me bring Belinda into this. But I will get us to deal with these matters. I mean, we'll get into the issues as raised by your flag bearer, and then we'll get to address them. But Belinda, one thing that cannot be lost sight of, really, is that you seem to have a lot of young people in the PPP. Beyond, I mean, the Congress grounds itself, the videos and pictures we saw, beyond that, look at the kind of people who speak for you, people who appear on your on shows for you, on radio, etc. Even now, two of you here sitting here, very young. It's not in the ordinary that we see these things happening in the political parties that we have. Is that a conscious effort on your part? How have you attracted the young people?
Well, you can say it's conscious and somehow subconscious, because the problems of the young people are always similar, okay? And for people our ages who have lived through some of the past regimes,
right,
then you are discerning enough to know that these people or this type of government will not take us anywhere. So then you have to look for change. And of course, you can't sit back and expect that some few people can cause the change. We are the majority in terms of youth. So we have to involve ourselves to also contribute to cause that change. And so it's just something that, kind of like a ripple effect that happened. Okay, like we just happened to have many young people having the same kind of mentality, and we just found ourselves on the same platform. So that's really what has happened. It's conscious also because the older people also, let me say, cherish our contributions and our mindsets and everything that we can contribute towards the development of this country. So it's conscious and subconscious. See, when you have a common agenda, naturally it leads you towards a certain path, and before you realize you're all walking in the same direction. So that really is what happened.
What is it that attracted you in particular? One, as a female, and two, as a young person. I can guess your age. I remember you from back then.
Don't do that.
University of Ghana. So, putting the two together, Belinda, what is it that attracted you to the PPP?
First of all, as a young woman, like you're saying, one, women have not been involved in politics. Not many women have been involved in politics. Not many young women also. And also, normally, when you see the young women, they are like supporters.
Okay.
The PPP provides a platform where you are allowed to take up a leading role, okay? So you actually take up a responsibility. You are given the mandate to make sure that whatever you do has a positive effect. So that was what attracted me to the PPP. Also because, one of the flag bearers, Dr. Paku Sindum, you watch him carefully and you realize he's serious about what he says, okay? You look at him in his personal life, his contributions towards society, his creation of jobs, and I've actually done something like a survey, and he has many young people in his companies. And for me, if you look at somebody like that and he says he can do something, you need to support it. And you know, those little things, you realize that, okay, he's been a member of parliament before. You look at him, when he was there, what was his contribution? It was good. As a minister of state, he's one of the people who sets the ball rolling, that you don't really have to belong to a particular political party before you can serve your nation. Okay, he joined the Kufuor administration and he performed marvelously. He could have just said, okay, I'm not part of this administration, and so I will make it fail. But he did not. And so people like that, they guide you. They give you some form of hope, even when there's no hope. And for me, those and other, the Kufuor Samwise and all of us having this, common agenda, that actually, pushed me towards the PPP.
Kofi, what is this about the Electoral Commission bit, really? We heard it in the news. What was the Electoral Commission's role to begin with, and was it really absent?
Yes, I thank you for this opportunity to be able to explain matters. You see, the confusion or the misunderstanding surrounding the role of the Electoral Commission was how we christened, or people christened, the Saturday's event.
Right.
Now, we've been used to congresses when delegates come from all the constituencies to converge at one point, normally to elect a presidential candidate or national executive of a political party. Ours was different. We were not seeking to elect any national officer and also seeking to elect a presidential candidate. So it was a convention, so to speak, that, for example, something like a crusade. So the supervisory role of the Electoral Commission, as dictated by the Political Parties Act, could not arise as far as this Saturday's event was concerned. What we did was to send an invitation to the Electoral Commission as a recognized body that we have to be cooperating with subsequently. So the Electoral Commission received an invitation, but we were told that the chairman of the commission will not be able, because his invitation was sent in the name of the chairman of the commission, will not be able to attend, but they will send observers. But subsequently, I think there was a news item that sought to establish the supervisory role of the EC as far as Saturday's event was concerned. That is what the EC explained, that they didn't have such a role to perform at that function, because what is required of them legally was not happening. So therefore, they were not coming to supervise. So that created the general misunderstanding that the EC was boycotting the event. It was not the case.
But what about the bit of the news which said that really it had to do also with your recognition as your status, full status as a political party, that you had actually not been through the full mill, so to speak, to become a political party? Because that was also reported in the media.
Yes, I think we've had to cause to write to protest against the source of that news item. Okay. I will not be able to go into the detail on this, but it came from a particular source. We've written to them to kind of protest and seek to have an apology issued. Today they've written to us that they did not intend to cause such harm to the Progressive People's Party, and that they are ready to meet us to dialogue. Now, the issue of recognition or the lack of it is a very simple matter. Under the Political Parties Act, a political party makes an application to the Electoral Commission for it to be registered. Now, the procedure is that after you have submitted the 170 plus 10 and other 9 officers' signatures to the EC, you are supposed to be given a provisional certificate that allows you to then organize yourself fully as a political party. The other thing that is remaining is a 30-day period of Gazette notification that gives other people in the country an opportunity to raise objection to do with color of a political party or to do with name, symbol, and related matters. Now, that is what we are waiting for, and it is 30 days from the date of Gazette notification. So if the date of Gazette notification was after we received a certificate on the 2nd of February. So we have about 7 days to go to get our final certification. So it had nothing to do with the lack of recognition. In fact, 2 weeks prior to this news item, Dr. Afreja himself gave us a green light that to the extent that even if we wanted to elect our flag bearer, we could do so, because if I can quote him correctly, he said any group can elect their own flag bearer. So it is not that we were violating any legal instrument for that matter. So we considered that news item as mischievous, and we were not happy with it. We have made our protest known, and we think that subsequently, but of course, despite what happened, the people showed up from Bumpugu Yoyo, from Jabosobia, every part of Ghana that is counted among the 230 constituencies, sent representatives, and we're very happy with the outcome of the event.
So let me ask you.
Yes.
You're saying that the EC did not have a role at Saturday's event, strictly speaking.
Yes, strictly speaking, yes.
And so its absence really does not take anything away from the convention, as you called it.
Yeah.
Would you subsequently be holding a Congress?
Yes, to elect a presidential candidate.
A flag bearer,
yes,
national executives and all of that.
Yeah.
It is February coming to an end already. The elections are in December. Would you have what we have come to understand as a Congress in Ghana?
No, what we intend to do subsequently is that having organized this convention, we want to do something different for what is known. For example, if you remember, the NPP Congress was not organized at a certain location where you have delegates meeting in one day.
Yes.
What we intend to do is to have a region by region basis. For example, if you fix a date for parliamentary and presidential primaries to be held in Upper East region, on that day, all the 13 constituencies in the Upper East region will hold parliamentary primaries. So every card-bearing member, paid up, member of the Progressive People's Party will have a decision to make in who becomes the party's parliamentary candidate in, let's say, Boko Central constituency. At that same Boko Central constituency center, where they vote for the parliamentary candidate, the delegates, or if you like, the party members who are voting, will also have an opportunity under the supervision of the District Electoral Commission to endorse the sole presidential aspirant of the party.
Let me stop you right there for purposes of clarification, because I'm reading from Dr. Parkwesi's speech. Okay, I don't have it's not page numbered, so at some point it says that at this point we would like to introduce to you some of our members who are aspiring to become parliamentary candidates for the PPP this year. We want them all to rise so we can acknowledge the wise choices they have made, the quality of our people, their dedication to duty, etc., etc., etc. So who did you introduce? Were they persons? How did you introduce them? Because from what you are explaining to me, you are going to have a regional base competition also of a kind. Is that to say that some people were introduced who were, say, going to compete against each other in one constituency?
Yes.
That's what happened?
That's what
These were not the candidates, so to speak?
No, they were not candidates.
These were the, okay.
So it's possible you have two people coming from the same constituency that will have to battle it out for one person to be elected the party's parliamentary candidate.
What's the date for this?
Hopefully the first date will be 11th of March. That's the proposed date, and we start from the Upper East region, come to the Northern region, proceed to the Bronga-Ahafo region, and go back to Upper West region. And then we are hoping to end the whole exercise by end of March 2012. By that time, we should have an official presidential candidate of the Progressive People's Party.
I'll come to you, Belinda, for the manifesto issue, where it looks as if there's no manifesto. But let me stay with you just on the final bit, where you say you hope to have all these. Are you going to have candidates for all 230 constituencies?
Yeah, we have candidates for all 230 constituencies.
Every single one of
Every single one of them. And we are also saying, as a first sign of our different from, or being different from the other political parties, we have made a commitment to have 20% at least of all our parliamentary candidates being women. So there will be 230 parliamentary candidates on the ticket of the Progressive People's Party.
Interesting. Let me quote this portion of Dr. Indum's speech. I am pleased, so quote, I am pleased to present to you our political platform for the 2012 elections. Ours is a simple yet powerful agenda. We are not going to produce a huge book of promises and call it a manifesto. Ghana already has the directive principles of state policy in our constitution. The PPP wants the opportunity to implement an agenda for change that is built on stewardship, education, healthcare, and jobs. We will implement the agenda using the spirit of inclusiveness that will enable us to use the best Ghanaians, full participation of women and youth, and above all, leadership that is incorruptible. By dealing with corruption, we can double government revenue, which we'll use to pay for our transformational initiatives in education, healthcare, and job creation. No manifesto. Directive principle of state policy, I think that's chapter 6 of our constitution, if I'm right.
That's right.
It says it's already there. And yet, he talks about an agenda for change with a capital A and a capital C, which, to the lawyer's eye, still represents a noun, something that exists. Is that agenda for change still going to be a book, which is a manifesto but not called a manifesto, like saying that this is a fork, but I won't call it a fork, and so it's something else?
It's a simple 10-point agenda. Okay. It's not, like he says, it's not going to be a book. Okay. We've actually put it under those 4 topics that you mentioned. And it's just going to serve as our guidelines. You know, if you go through the manifesto, sometimes they are so bulky that people don't even read it. You have people following you, but they don't even understand what you're doing. So, okay, we are like, we have to do things differently. Ours is a 10-point agenda. How are we going to solve every problem in this country? So we pick discipline, we pick performance of governance, we pick job creation, energy. So it's, some people can call it a manifesto, but it's not a manifesto for us because it's a simple 10-point agenda. What we understand as manifestos are normally thick books that will go, sometimes can ramble on and on and on, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't achieve anything.
But really, to tell the truth, you can have a 5-point agenda and that will be your manifesto. There's no requirement for the size of a book that we call a manifesto. You can have a 1-page manifesto. The manifesto simply represents your views, your vision, your policies, your ideas for doing anything. I can put it in 2 sentences. Don't you think so?
No, well, you can. And that would be your choice, okay? But we are saying that we are going against the convention.
Okay.
We are saying that it is a 10-point agenda.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 10. That's it. And there's not a manifesto. Because like if you go through all them, even the past, during the 2008 elections, I think if you go through the manifesto, they're a bit different from what you see over here, okay? Ours is 10 point and it has action plans.
And that's
So
why I
it's
say
a
someone may
bit
argue
different.
and say it's a matter of style, but it's still a manifesto.
No, but then we are saying it's not a manifesto. It is a 10-point agenda.
So you
It's
don't have
platform.
a manifesto for election 2012?
No, that's a platform on which we are going to operate.
Okay. So if you were, for example, in a meeting somewhere, anywhere in the world, because we do a lot of international collaborations, and they say, okay, what is your manifesto? Can we see your party's manifesto? Would you give them the 10-point agenda?
I'll tell them, oh, we don't have a manifesto, okay? However, as a political party, we also know we should have guidelines on how we are going to operate.
Okay.
And so this is what we have. The others can have their manifestos. We don't have a manifesto.
Interesting. Kofi,
Yes.
I realize you are smiling from the far end of the table. And what do you have to say about this manifesto thing? Of course, I'm sure your position is the same.
Yeah,
but
I think the reason why we want to go off the terminology of manifesto is because of the fact that it has come to mean a certain detailed, difficult to read and understand and appreciate the very details of it. And in the end, all the promises that are made in those documents do not really see the light of day when parties or government are formed.
Okay.
So all that we want to say is that we have a 1.5-page document that we have christened political platform. It's a very simple 10 items listed that is going to be the basis of a social contract between us and the people. So I think the difficulty in explaining the manifesto terminology is because it's come to, let's say, what we do in research, operational definitions. I see it as a big voluminous document that you have to go through and find at which pages that a political party said A, B, or C. But this one, if you have to do a photocopy to distribute, you have one sheet in town given to members of the public that tells you all that you need to know about the Progressive People's Party. So that is the simplicity of the message is really the position or the angle where we are coming from.
I have to take a commercial break. Will somebody be wrong if they called this your party's manifesto?
Well, in that case, if you defined a party's manifesto as what you seek to do,
Which is what it is, really. You're talking about creating a just and disciplined society with a passion for excellence. Within 10 years, with science and technology as a cornerstone. Okay. You'll reform state institutions, make government more efficient, raise revenue, and be able to pay public servants well to motivate them to facilitate the work of the private sector and Ghanaian society in general. Let's take those two together. Then when we come, we'll talk about, when we move on, we'll talk about the changing portions of the constitution, basically making elections at the district municipal levels elective rather than appointive, and also abolishing some constitutional provisions that allow ministers of state to also serve as members of parliament. That's a very critical thing. And you've actually you say you do that within your first term and all of that. First and foremost, the modernization of agric, you're talking about transformation of state institutions and all of that. Linda, how are you going to do that? We've been hearing this for a very long time in our political discourse, irrespective of which party is in power. Okay, we've had two, NDC and PPP. They always say these things themselves as well. Why should it coming from the PPP mean anything different to me, really?
Because this time it's coming from a political party which is committed and which acts with a sense of urgency. Okay, like you're saying, if for the past years it's been said several times and yet nothing has happened. Now, when we come, we don't have time to waste anymore. Okay, we have normally the few times they try to modernize agriculture, research has shown that it normally goes to a few farmers, not the majority of the farmers, because I believe you know that the majority of the farmers also tend to produce more, and yet they don't get access to these things. So what we are saying is we are going to make sure that it gets down to the farmer in the small village over there, the farmer who probably...
I'm not saying you are lying. I just want to know how you do it.
State institutions, okay. We said we are going to reform them to work properly.
Yes.
Okay.
So what changes are you bringing?
That's why we have district assemblies. That's why we're going to have, we're going to put the checks in place, okay. We're going to ensure a disciplined society. And it's going to start from the top, okay. So if you have a president who is so serious and committed to whatever he's doing, it's going to trickle down. And we are going to monitor everything. So it's not just going to be thrown out there and no proper evaluation or monitoring is going to be done. It's going to be critical, and we're going to assess what kind of impact it's having on the lower level. If it's not working, like we said, we are pragmatists and we act with common sense. We need to change the strategy. And so when the situation produces itself, you look at surrounding situations and then you bring solutions that will solve it. And so we know, you see, if you, I mean, for now, like Dr. Indum has been in government before. So he knows, he's been a member of parliament before, he's been an assemblyman. So he really knows what goes on down there. And like we're saying, we are going to work with like-minded Ghanaians, inclusiveness. So it's not going to be a winner takes all. We're going to bring people who will come from the whole of Ghana, and people who are going to be committed to whatever happens. So we know it's going to be different, and we know it's going to be achievable this time around. It's going to be different because we're going to have people who have the country at heart, who want to see a better Ghana than what we are seeing now.
Are you necessarily opposed to the free market principles? I mean, you asked that against the background of the use of the progressive, and it's actually in your name. All right, and the way I've come to understand it, and many political scientists understand it. Because he also says that unlike other Ghanaian political parties, you are not selling an ideological mission to Ghanaian people. And again, so where do you stand? Because really, are you saying that you are in the hot pot, so to speak? It's an admixture of everything. You are neither, you neither face east nor west, supposed in Nkrumah, and you don't believe in, you are not against free market, neither are you against socialism, or neither are you against. Do you have a position?
Me, you see, we shouldn't be tied with rhetorics. Okay, there's a danger in that, because it confines you to a certain space.
Right.
Okay. So let's say you have a problem, and you're going to say maybe at that moment you need something, a bit of capitalism to solve it. Are you going to say you're a socialist and so you're not going to solve it? What we are saying is you look at the situation, what is achievable, what can be used to solve the problem, and that's how come we keep saying we are pragmatic. We are going to act with a sense of agency.
So you are drawing on all of these, all of these philosophies, ideologies, political reasoning.
We
whatever,
are going to look at the situation.
Approach.
To look at the situation of the Ghanaian, okay, what can be done to help the Ghanaian at this moment? Okay, it means market liberalization is good for us. We are going to tap it, but then we make sure that the person benefiting is the Ghanaian and not some other person.
So you don't want to walk around with tags?
No.
We are Democrats, we are this, we are socialists, we are...
We want to solve the problems because have they helped us? I mean, sincerely, have they helped us?
I don't know, you tell me.
They have not helped us. For me, I mean, it hasn't helped me. Okay. So we believe that you have to look at your situation and then you act accordingly. You can't just say that I have to do it this way, I have to do it this way. And so we are not against market liberalization or free markets. But if it goes against the Ghanaian, then we've lost it. Okay.
I see your point. Kofi, so you are talking about changing the constitution. Some of those provisions you are talking about are entrenched constitutions. Service of members of parliament, also as ministers of state, etc. and all that. They are not things you can just wake up and change. I'm not saying it cannot be done within a term, but it's a formidable matter. We've seen the Constitution Review Commission at work before our very eyes in recent times, and you know the kind of time it takes to do some of these things. If you have a referendum involved and all of that, there are some questions that may be raised and all that. How realistic are these things that you're talking about? These changes, voting, chief executive, changing, making sure MP, you can get people outside of parliament to also serve, because it's more than 50% or so is what the Constitution says and all that. Those are not easy things to implement.
Yeah, but that is why we recognize that these are it's a very tall order, but we need to do them because it's a very important order. For example, we say that, you know, there's a confusion during election time that even somebody, I've forgotten who the person is challenging the constitutionality of the MP's Common Fund. It's because of these difficulties of MPs being agent or being seen as agents of development, that some way, somehow, they manage to have a certain percentage of the District Assembly Common Fund ceded to MPs. Okay. So it's created a lot of problems at the grassroots, because the man responsible or the woman responsible for local development matters is appointed from Accra. So they see the MP who they have a power to decide who then becomes or who occupies that position as the then agent of change. But he's not. MPs are legislators, the lawmakers. That's the end of the matter. So we should give them that responsibility as that. Now, it is also important that when you give the people the power to determine who becomes the district chief executives, then they'll be able to sit up and do some of the things that are critical in solving the problems that confronts the people at the local level. Now, the one on the constitutional changes that make sure that the president doesn't appoint ministers from parliament.
More than 50%.
More than, I would have wished that in a moderate situation, that why don't you free up the hand of the president, that if Nia de Klerk finds himself in parliament, but they have a certain capacity that is required, at let's say the AG's department, we can bring him in. But you don't say that what happens if at some point in our history, all the people we have in parliament do not have a certain capacity to do some ministerial jobs. What are we going to do? So we are saying that free up the hand of the president, allow him to employ people from outside or inside parliament.
Currently, the president can get people outside. It's a percentage issue. It says that he should appoint more than 50%.
So that is a critical thing that
so you can still have 49% outside. You think that is not enough?
Yeah, that's not enough. For example, if
because there's a background to that in 1979, where you know that Lehman and the budget, as it was read, was actually rejected by Parliament.
That gives us an opportunity.
That it breaks government business flow, and so at least if you have that number in Parliament appointed by you, then you are more likely to have government business, riding on a smooth way.
That is government taking the part of least resistance. You don't do that. Okay. What you do is take your bill back to the cabinet, renegotiate with MPs, and that is how negotiation will come about. And the best policies are result in that kind of negotiation and exchanges. But you don't, for example, doesn't it strike you that under the NDC 1 or MPP or now NDC 2 or 3, every single bill introduced, controversial bill, introduced by the executive was passed by the government MPs in parliament. And every other one, NHI is not good, but when it was being passed, every single opposition MP voted against it or there was a walkout. VAT, the same thing. But when the table stand, VAT was maintained. Today, the Chinese loan, we are not even discussing the merit or demerit of such a huge quantum of money to propel our development. So all that we are saying is that we have turned that huge, important state institution called the legislature into a rubber stamp and an appendage of the executive. And I think that is what we should stop. And MPs take up the key role of checking whatever that comes out from Parliament. For example, a Minister of Health, who is a member of Parliament, goes to discuss health policy that is really inimical to the interest of the majority of the people. Then he has an opportunity in Parliament also to pass this and give a blessing, as if Parliament has done it. And normally they go under the cover to say that Parliament has approved it. Parliament has approved it. But you realize that it is the executive that has actually done that, bulldozed their way through, and it doesn't help us. We don't get quality bills and quality policies coming out of the exchanges. And I think that is where we should be focusing on, and also having the opportunity to create the environment for the president to decide. Because this is assuming I don't like Mr. Tenya Ono as a Minister of Education, I'm compelled by a certain calculation to find somebody, some way, somehow. And I think presidents have complained about it. And I think it's time that we look at that. There is no, we don't have to be so scared about the fact that we do not have. For example, we have said that you do not need a seat in Parliament to become president. But people try to link it up, and civil society is also making that mistake.
What do you mean? But that's our constitution. You don't need a seat. What do you mean by you don't need a seat in parliament to become president? Because that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. But the impression is being created that you need a certain number of MPs to be able to have
because you need the idea journalists to make sure. In fact, you need majority is what people say.
So, but it's wrong.
To make sure that everything you say can go through.
Yeah, everything you say, and that is the angle that is driving the fact that a certain number of your party members might be in parliament. So that is what we should be guarding against. And I think if you did that, it will help all of us. The negotiations will be deeper. There'll be a lot more thinking, a lot more deeper work. Sometimes bills are rushed through the house, and it's become so that this comes from parliament. And I think it doesn't look too
interesting. We can't deal with all the issues in an hour because we have just a few minutes to get out of the studio. Some are talking about providing quality education for every Ghanaian child, energy for industrialization and rapid development, ensure a cleaner environment, attack crime, drug trade, corruption aggressively, establish a secretariat to cater for the needs of Ghanaians abroad, government's purchasing power raised. We will find the money to implement our programs by strengthening our institutions, etc. We can't deal with all of this. It's a tall order. But you should be giving me your final statements. You choose which side of these you want to touch on before we go.
I'd like to touch on jobs.
Go right ahead.
Okay, because it's a critical issue for the young people of this country. We are saying that if you want jobs, okay, seriously, the unemployment situation, okay, and I'll be quick on this. The unemployment situation is being looked at in a very bad way, okay? They look at it only in terms of money in your pocket, but it really tends to solve so many problems, okay? If, for instance, if you have, say right now there are no jobs, okay? So everybody wants a job. Nobody wants to sit at home. So I'm a woman, so I use a woman as an example. And because it's now become an issue with the female civil societies, and then they're trying to talk of our moral standards, okay? Now, a young lady wants a job. She meets an older man who is like, okay, I can give you a job. And then but then you have to do A, B, C, D, which you know what I mean, I don't say it to you. And you can't do it, okay? So you don't do it. After a while, you sit at home 6 months, 7 months. And I know people who have done it. After a while, you're like, oh, what's the problem? Let me just do it and get the job. And then we come back to come and say that our moral standard is lowering. But then we are not even connecting it to unemployment issue. So what I'm saying is, for the people of Ghana, if you want that and so many other issues to be solved, look no further than the PPP. Because we are bringing somebody who creates jobs. And jobs, you know, can solve so many problems. So come December 7th, look no further than Dr. Papa Kwesi.
First of all, the comment that says that it's a new party just came up. In 1992, NDC just came up, and NPP came up, but NDC won. So there's always been a new political party on the scene. Okay. Now, one of the fundamental issues that will be key in the policy is education. That is what you find under Chapter 6, Directive Principles of State Policy, FQ, Free, Basic, Compulsory, Universal Basic Education. And that is what we are committed to. And one thing we want to do is to raise the basic standard to SSS, that the BEC will not be an instrument of discriminating or preventing people from going to the secondary school. And that is what we will do. And the compulsory aspect, we will have an education policy in place, like it happened in the First Republic, that will make sure the child is in school. And that is the only guarantee that you'll be able to educate the majority of your people. Okay. The Progressive People's Party have come from a certain motivation that we have a choice to make as a people, that if we give our right of self-defense to the ruled and we do not get the benefits thereof, we have reserved the right to change who forms government in this country. So that is where we are coming from, and we are hoping that Ghanaians appreciate our position and say that if 20 years of democratic governance has not produced the kind of results that we need, it is time for us to look to an alternative political party, and that is the PPP.